All right, imagine this. It's, say, a Tuesday afternoon. You're in a conference room, or, maybe it's one of those high-stakes Zoom calls where every single camera is on, staring right at you.
Oh, yeah.
The budget's bleeding. The timeline is totally crunched. The client is not happy. And then the room goes quiet. And slowly, every head turns your way. They're just waiting.
The dreaded spotlight. I think every leader knows the temperature of that room.
Right. And in your gut, there's this massive, just crushing pressure to know. To have the perfect answer right now. Because that's the job, isn't it? If you don't have the answer, why are you the leader? You feel like you have to be this vending machine of solutions.
That feeling right there. That is probably the single biggest trap in modern management. We sometimes call it the answer machine syndrome.
The answer machine.
Yeah, it's this deep-seated belief that leadership just equals having immediate solutions. But today, we're going to flip that script entirely.
We are. We're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating piece of material. It's titled The Power of the Question, A Guide to Socratic Leadership. And it's structured as a dialogue, a conversation between a wise teacher and a very, very stressed out student who honestly reminds me a little too much of myself.
I think we've all been that student. They've climbed the corporate ladder, they've got the fancy title, but they are absolutely drowning in decision fatigue. They think they're doing the right thing by solving every problem that hits their desk.
And the source material just diagnoses this perfectly. It argues that this student, and frankly most of us, we believe that silence is a weakness. We think answering quickly is a sign of strength.
Right.
But the core argument here is that this mindset doesn't just burn you out, it actually cripples your team.
It creates a culture of dependency. If you're always the hero who fixes everything, you are, maybe inadvertently, teaching your team to stop thinking. You're training them to be helpless.
Oof. That hits hard. So our mission for this deep dive is, well, it's pretty clear. We're going to explore why the most effective leaders actually answer less and ask more. We're going to look at how shifting from answer mode to question mode can save projects, careers, and, as we'll see from the history books, literally save lives.
It sounds so counterintuitive. I mean, we're paid to know things, right?
Yeah.
But if we really unpack the sources, we see that the reliance on just knowing is exactly what gets organizations into catastrophic trouble.
Well, let's get right into that trouble, because the source material, it really doesn't pull any punches here. It starts by analyzing what it calls the high cost of silence.
And it uses some heavy-hitting examples. The first one is the Titanic.
A classic. Now, everyone knows the physical cause of the Titanic disaster was the iceberg, but the source argues the organizational cause was something else.
It was silence.
This was just fascinating to me. It wasn't that nobody saw the ice or that nobody knew there was danger. The source highlights that, there were concerns. Other ships had radioed warnings about ice fields.
So people knew.
People knew. Crew members had doubts about the speed they were traveling at in pitch blackness. But nobody really pushed back. Why?
Because of the hierarchy.
Yeah.
The culture at White Star Line, specifically on that ship, was one where you just didn't question the captain. There was this profound fear of looking, foolish or unprofessional.
You don't tell the captain how to drive the ship.
You don't. And the source calls it a politeness that masks danger. That phrase really stuck with me.
Me too.
It's this collective belief that if no one else is saying anything, everything must be fine. The silence itself, it acts as a confirmation bias. You look around, you see everyone else doing their job quietly, and you assume your doubt is the problem, not the situation.
So silence isn't just a lack of noise, it's a false signal of safety.
Exactly. And on the Titanic, that false signal cost 1,500 lives. But the source material, it escalates this. It moves from the Titanic to something more modern and way more complex. The Challenger space shuttle disaster in 1986.
Yeah, this one hits hard. I remember reading the case study on this years ago, but this source frames it a little differently. The tragedy here wasn't a surprise iceberg. The engineers at Morton Thiokol, the contractor who built the rocket boosters, they knew the O-rings would fail in cold weather.
They had the data. They had the charts. The morning of the launch was freezing. There was literally ice on the launch pad. They explicitly recommended a delay. They were screaming, metaphorically, that it wasn't safe.
So if they knew and they spoke up, why did the launch happen? I mean, how does that information get lost?
Because at the critical moment, the nature of the questions changed. And this is where the source makes a brilliant distinction. The conversation shifted from a technical inquiry, is this safe, to a political one.
And when you say political, you don't mean Democrats versus Republicans.
No, not at all. Internal office politics, questions about power, Budgets, contract, reputation. NASA was under immense pressure to launch. They delayed before the press was watching. There were these conference calls between the engineers and the managers. And there's this famous, just heartbreaking moment where a senior manager tells the lead engineer to take off his engineering hat and put on his management hat.
Ugh, that chills me every time I hear it. Put on your management hat. That's just code for stop looking at the truth and start looking at the optics.
Precisely. The questions in the room became, can we afford another delay? How will this look in the press? Will we lose our funding? And when those questions drown out, will the crew survive? You get disaster. The safety of truth clashed with the safety of position.
And position one.
Position one.
It's a terrifying pattern. The source also brings up the Bay of Pigs invasion under Kennedy, and this introduces the concept of groupthink. Can we define that for a second?
Sure. Groupthink is, it's a psychological phenomenon that happens in a group where the desire for harmony or conformity just results in an irrational or dysfunctional decision.
I see.
Kennedy had brilliant advisors, the best and the brightest. But in the meetings planning that invasion, doubts were suppressed just to maintain consensus.
It's that feeling in a meeting where you disagree, but you don't want to be the negative one. You don't want to kill the vibe or look like you're not a team player.
Exactly that. They valued the harmony of the room more than the critical analysis of the plan. So bad ideas went unchallenged because the social cost of asking a hard question was just too high.
So it paints a pretty grim picture of hierarchy. It seems like the higher up you go or the closer you get to the center of power, the fewer genuine questions get asked.
That's the structural flaw. In a lot of traditional organizations, a question is viewed as a challenge to authority. If I ask you, why are we doing it this way? What your ego hears is, you don't know what you're doing.
So the teacher in our source material really emphasizes that if a culture values positional safety over truth safety, questions die. And when questions die, mistakes get expensive or deadly.
But, it's not all doom and gloom. The source pivots here. It doesn't just leave us despairing over the challenger. It offers a counterexample, a story of how questions can actually resurrect a totally broken culture.
The USS Benfold. I love this story.
Yes, this is one of the most famous case studies in leadership. So the USS Benfold was a U.S. Navy destroyer. In the late 90s, it was, to put it mildly, a mess.
A mess how?
Low morale, terrible performance scores, high turnover. The crew just hated being there.
And they got a new commander, Captain D. Michael Abrashoff. Now, usually when a military unit is failing, the new guy comes in screaming, right? Tighten up the uniform, scrub the decks, strict discipline. That's the movie version.
That is the answer machine approach.
Yeah.
I know how to fix this. Do what I say. But Abrashoff did something the source describes as very strange for a military leader. He realized he didn't actually know why the ship was failing.
So he asked.
He interviewed the crew.
Every single sailor.
Every single one. Hundreds of interviews. He sat down with them individually.
And he used 3 specific questions. I love these because they are so deceptively simple. I have them written down right here. Question 1. What do you like most about this ship?
Okay.
Question 2. What do you like least? And question 3. What would you change if you could?
What do you like? What do you hate? What would you change?
It sounds almost too simple to work. Like, is that really enough to turn around a battleship?
It sounds simple, but you have to think about the context. These sailors had never been asked for their opinion, ever. They were just used to being told what to do. And suddenly, the guy at the very top is asking them how to run the ship.
It disrupts the whole power dynamic.
Completely. And so he gathered all this data, but he didn't just gather it. This is the crucial part the teacher points out. He acted on it.
He acted on it.
Yes. There's a great little detail in the source about rust. The sailors told him they spent hours and hours chipping rust and painting the fasteners on the deck. It was tedious, hated work. So Abrashoff looked into it and just replaced the fasteners with stainless steel. They never had to paint them again.
That's huge. It seems small, but it proves he was actually listening.
Exactly. And it freed up all that time for training and rest. The transformation was just comprehensive. The USS Benfold went from the worst ship in the fleet to the best. Retention skyrocketed. They actually did the work with fewer people and less budget because they got so efficient.
And the lesson here isn't just be nice to people.
No, not at all. The lesson is that the people doing the work know more about the problems than the leader does. The questions weren't just decoration. They were a tool for cultural operation. They signaled to the whole team, your brain matters here.
But here's the rub. If this is so effective, if asking questions saves ships and prevents explosions, Why is it so incredibly hard for us to do? Why do I still feel that urge to just bark out an answer?
The source dives deep into the psychology here, and it's not just habit, it's practically biology. The biggest barrier is ego.
The instinct to protect the image of, I know.
Right. Think about how we're trained. In school, who gets the gold star? The kid with the answer. In an entry-level job, who gets promoted? The one who solves the problem quickly. We condition ourselves for years to believe our value comes from knowing.
So asking a question feels like admitting a deficit. I don't know, therefore I am less valuable.
Precisely. The ego hates uncertainty. It feels physically uncomfortable. And there's also something the source calls stability bias.
Stability bias. Okay, break that down for us.
It's the assumption that the future will look just like the past. It leads leaders to rely on old solutions, yesterday's answers, for new problems. We assume that because a strategy worked in 2020, it will work in 2026.
So we don't ask, is this still right? We just repeat the play because it's comfortable.
Yeah, we just keep running it. And the teacher in the dialogue has this brutal phrase for this. He warns that if a leader doesn't ask, they lead by hallucinated understanding.
Hallucinated understanding. I love that.
Isn't it great? It means you're making decisions based on a movie that's only playing in your head, not on reality.
Yeah.
You think you know what the customer wants or what the engineers are facing, but unless you ask, you're hallucinating. You're using a map that doesn't match the territory.
Now, there is a trap here, though. The source warns that you can't just go around interrogating people like a detective. Tone matters so much, I can ask, why did you do that? And it sounds like a total accusation.
Oh, a massive difference.
Yeah.
The source distinguishes between what it calls killer questions and opening questions.
A killer question. It sounds aggressive.
It is. A killer question is, why did you do it like that? Or who authorized this? Or even, don't you think it would be better if... It's asking to pin blame.
It's asking to win.
It's asking to win, and it triggers a defensive response immediately. The other person is on trial. An opening question is asking to understand. Help me understand the goal here. Or what led us to this conclusion? Or what are the options we haven't considered?
The goal is to shift from an interrogation room to, what, a laboratory?
That's a great way to put it. You want the best idea to win, not the loudest voice.
Okay, so we're sold on the why. We know the history. We know the psychology. Let's get practical. You're listening to this and thinking, okay, I have a meeting tomorrow. I don't want to look incompetent, but I want to use this. The source material provides a toolkit, 5 specific practices for Socratic leadership.
This is the how-to section. Practice number 1 is shift from solving to seeing.
Shift from solving to seeing. So what does that look like in a real conversation?
Well, usually when someone brings you a problem, your brain immediately jumps to, how do I fix this? You have to stop that. Instead, ask diagnostic questions. What is really happening here? What's the evidence that this is the problem? Or even, what happens if we do nothing?
It forces the team to clarify the problem before they even jump to a solution.
Exactly. Albert Einstein reportedly said if he had an hour to save the world, he'd spend 55 minutes defining the problem and 5 minutes solving it. Most leaders spend 60 minutes solving the wrong problem.
Wow, that's a great metric. Okay, practice number 2. Ask to empower, not control.
This is all about who holds the monkey, who owns the problem. If you give the answer, you own it. If you ask a question, you give it back.
So instead of saying, go do X, Y, and Z, what do I ask?
You ask, what have you tried so far? Or what's your recommendation? Or maybe, which part of this are you most worried about?
I really like what have you tried. It implies that they're the ones acting, not me. It respects their expertise.
And it builds those maturity muscles we talked about earlier. If you always give the answer, their muscles never get strong. You want a team of problem solvers, not order takers.
Practice number 3 is a lifesaver for the impulsive types among us, myself included. The strategic pause.
This is so simple, but it is excruciatingly hard to do. When the pressure is on, like in that opening scenario we talked about, you explicitly ask for a timeout. The source suggests the phrase, give me 10 minutes to ask the right question.
Give me 10 minutes to ask the right question. I like that. It buys you time to bypass that initial panic response.
And it signals to the entire room that thinking is happening. It completely reframes what silence means. Silence isn't I'm stuck. Silence is I'm processing. It can actually increase your authority because you look composed.
Practice number 4 seems really critical for that safety aspect. Nurture a culture of safety.
Yeah, and this requires the leader to go first. You have to be the one to admit, I don't know. You have to ask questions that might seem fundamental or even foolish.
Like asking, wait, Can you just remind me what that acronym means or explain that to me like I'm 5?
Exactly. When the boss asks the dumb question, it gives permission for everyone else to ask theirs. It clears the air. And this is key. You have to reward the people who bring you bad news.
So if someone points out an iceberg, you thank them. You don't yell at them for slowing down the ship.
You have to make doubt a form of loyalty, because if you punish the messenger, you will never hear the truth again until it's way too late.
And finally, practice number 5, close with action.
This loops right back to the USS Benfold. A question without a follow-up step is just noise. If you ask the team what's wrong, and they tell you, and you do nothing, you've just bred cynicism.
You've proven that the whole thing was just a performance.
Right. So the ultimate closing questions are, okay, what's the next step? Who is owning this? And when do we review? Questions must drive momentum.
You know, reading through this source, I had a bit of an aha moment myself. The student in the dialogue, they realized something pretty profound. They thought they were carrying the burden for everyone being the noble leader. But the teacher points out that by doing that, they were actually robbing the team.
It's the paradox of helpfulness. When you solve everything, you strip others of their right to maturity. You prevent them from developing their own problem-solving muscles. It feels kind, but it's actually, well, it's destructive.
And you turn your own life into a permanent emergency room.
Which is completely unsustainable. The definition of a good leader, according to this source, isn't the person with all the answers. It is the person who designs an environment where the organization becomes smarter than the leader.
Smarter than the leader. That takes a lot of confidence to accept. You have to be okay with not being the smartest person in the room.
You have to trade the joy of being right for the joy of being effective. You become the facilitator of collective intelligence. You're building a self-correcting machine, an organization that asks, looks, corrects, and grows all on its own.
So what does this all mean for us, for you listening, maybe prepping for a meeting right now or driving to work?
It means you can relax a little. You don't have to carry the weight of omniscience. In fact, it's better if you don't.
The teacher gives us a kind of mantra to keep in our pockets, and I think this is really worth memorizing. Don't rush to be the one with the answer. Become the one who creates the right question.
It's a total shift in identity, from knower to learner, from solver to guide.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought from the source. It's a heavy one, but it's also inspiring. The teacher says that a single right question can save a project. It can save an organization. And sometimes, like we saw with the history books, it can save a life from living in illusion.
We often think of questions as slowing things down, but really they're the only things that ensure we're actually going somewhere worth going.
So tomorrow, when the pressure is on and the room goes silent, try it. Just take a breath, ask for that pause, and ask a question instead of giving an order.
You might just find that the answer you get from your team is a lot better than the one you would have come up with alone.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening and stay curious.